Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm Catherine Seltner in our Washington, D.C. studio. Here's what we have for you in this show. A teenager with Down syndrome challenges Germany's Angela Merkel about her pro-abortion views. Is it possible a girl once declared brain dead may now have brain function? We discuss the Jahai McMath case with top bioethics expert Wesley J. Smith. And this.
Camp No Limits is helping me make new friends.
We visit a summer camp that supports the families of children with limb loss. But first, our top story, the clock is ticking for Congress to pass health care reform this year that would both stop tax dollars from going to abortion and would defund Planned Parenthood. Republican senators have until September 30th to use a special budget procedure to pass legislation with a simple majority of 51 votes. And what's seen as a healthcare Hail Mary pass, Senators Lindsey Graham and Bill-Cassidy are proposing a healthcare reform bill that would stop tax dollars for abortion, defund Planned Parenthood, and would redirect tax dollars to community health centers. The bill is also sponsored by Senators Dean Heller and Ron Johnson. Democrats are unanimously against the bill, so Republicans would lose the vote if just 3 GOP senators oppose it. Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri joins us now from Capitol Hill. Thank you for your time.
Well, Catherine, nice to be with you. Thank you for your work.
Senator, you endorse the Graham-Cassidy legislation. Why is this healthcare reform you think pro-lifers should get behind?
Well, I think it's another step in the direction of reaffirming our commitment to pro-life issues as a Congress and as a country. So far this year, probably the most important thing we've done in the long term is put a judge on the Supreme Court that we think will look at the law and try to interpret the law and the Constitution, and rather than to try to determine what the law should have said in a judge's opinion, what the law and the Constitution do say. We think that's good for the pro-life cause. The elimination of that last Obama regulation that would have prevented states from not using Planned Parenthood as a provider. And then in all of the versions of trying to move on from Obamacare, every one of the versions the Senate voted on included strong pro-life language, as does the Graham-Cassidy. I was glad to be the first member of Republican leadership to join those 2 senators and others in advocating that this is the direction we ought to be looking. More choices to the states, but more protections for life.
Many see this Graham-Cassidy bill as a last-ditch effort, unlikely to pass. Do you expect your fellow Republican senators Murkowski and Collins will support it? They have both defended Planned Parenthood.
Well, I think it gives so much discretion to states. I hope that all of my colleagues can look at that and think that that's not only the right way to provide health care, but it's a conservative Republican view of getting decisions made closer to people. In terms of the Graham-Cassidy structure itself, again, even though it makes our job more difficult, we're trying to do this in all cases in ways that provide pro-life protections.
We are 9 months into this administration now. You mentioned some of the pro-life accomplishments so far, but many pro-lifers are impatient. Planned Parenthood is not yet defunded. What are you going to do, Senator, to ensure that that happens?
Ideally, I'd like to see the administration return back to where President Reagan and his predecessor, President Bush, or his successor rather, were. For 12 years. We had by executive order that you couldn't give family planning money to any organization that also performed abortions. That's the cleanest way to do this. It's certain in its determination, and it's been upheld by the Supreme Court.
Senator, if Congress cannot defund Planned Parenthood, what will this mean for the 2018 elections?
People who are focused, as you and I are, on this issue should be looking at what has been done, about the willingness to vote on these issues, even if the vote was unsuccessful on the floor, as it turned out to be on repealing Obamacare, to continue to have the life issue as one of the front issues in this national debate.
Is it worth shutting down the government if pro-life measures don't pass? Is that something you would be willing to do? Do you think it's worth it?
I don't think shutting down the government's ever a very good strategy, and of course lots of other programs that people are committed to life support would be put at jeopardy, feeding programs and other programs if that happened. Now, if there's some strategy where that can produce a final result, that's a different thing rather than just to try to prove a point. So far, shutting down the government's never been a very valid point prover. I don't think it would be there, but being willing to put people on record does have lasting impact on what voters get to know about the people they send to Washington, the people they elect to office. I think ultimately that's one of the better things we can do, and we clearly have shown we're willing to do.
Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For reaction and more analysis, we turn now to our experts. Andrew Guernsey is legislative assistant for the government affairs team at Family Research Council. Autumn Christensen is policy director at the Susan B. Anthony List. She previously served as director of the Congressional Pro-Life Caucus in the House of Representatives for over a decade. Welcome both to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us
on. Here.
First off, both of your groups, Family Research Council, Susan B. Anthony List, recently came out in support of the Graham-Cassidy bill. Why?
Well, the Graham-Cassidy bill offers the best and last chance for Republicans to follow through on their promises to defund Planned Parenthood, stop taxpayer funding of abortion, and repeal and replace Obamacare. On the issue of Planned Parenthood, this would stop funding from the federal government to Planned Parenthood for a year from the lion's share of its programs. It would really decimate Planned Parenthood from being able to really engage in their number one activity, which is the heart of their business model, and that's abortion.
That's right.
They commit over 330,000 abortions every year. It's the heart of their business model, and they don't deserve federal funds. And this is our last best chance to do it.
Autumn?
Yeah, and in addition to that, ever since Obamacare was first rolled out, our two organizations have tracked the number of plans in Obamacare that cover abortion on demand. And we've found roughly 900 Obamacare plans in the most recent year cover abortion. In 5 states, there are no plans that exclude abortion. All of them pay for abortion on demand. And so Graham-Cassidy would rectify that by bringing those funds into a place where they would not be able to be spent on abortion.
As we just heard, it sounds as if Senator Blunt seems to think his colleagues, Senators Murkowski and Collins, can support the Graham-Cassidy bill. Do you agree?
Well, I looked at Obamacare has been a disaster for Alaska. If there's any senator that should be the first in line to repeal and replace Obamacare, it should be Senator Murkowski. So I believe that this Graham-Cassidy bill offers a great solution to give that power back to the states, including states like Alaska, so they can design health care programs that protect life and provide better insurance solutions for families than Obamacare.
Autumn, what do you think?
Sure, yeah, and on the Planned Parenthood issue in particular, Planned Parenthood does 97% of the abortions in Alaska. Wow. So for Senator Murkowski to look at this issue, the funds will still be available for women's health. They can be done at community health centers and other alternative sites that outnumber Planned Parenthood by 44 to 1. So even on the Planned Parenthood issue specifically, we think that there is good reason for her to vote for the bill.
Even though we do want to be optimistic about the outcome of these pro-life protections, if 3 GOP senators oppose this bill, it's not going to pass. And if that happens, what are the next steps? How will we defund Planned Parenthood?
Well, we are not going to give up. We're not stopping. So this bill is helpful in that it is a bill that only needs a simple majority. It can't be filibustered. Time runs out at the end of September for this particular bill, but if this bill doesn't get done, we will go on to the next reconciliation bill, the next bill that only needs a simple majority, which will mostly deal with taxes, but we will be insisting that there be language to cut off funding to Planned Parenthood there too.
That's right. Republicans are out of excuses. Really, this is their last chance to get it done, and the pro-lifers who elected both this Congress and President Donald Trump to follow through on those pro-life promises really don't deserve anything less.
Thank you both for continuing to monitor these specific pro-life protections. Thank you both, Andrew Guernsey, Autumn Christensen. The clock is ticking for Congress to pass health care with pro-life protections. As pro-lifers, this is the time for us to act. This is the time for us to raise our pro-life voice and demand our taxpayer dollars stop funding abortion and our government stop funding Planned Parenthood. The Graham-Cassidy pro-life healthcare bill would do those two things. Let's do our part now as pro-life citizens and let our senators know we support those pro-life protections. Our call to action changes each week, but this one is an important one. For this week's call to action, go to prolifeweekly.com. Tell your senators to support the Graham-Cassidy pro-life healthcare bill. Once you go to the website, prolifeweekly.com, simply type in your name and basic information where prompted. This ensures your pro-life message is tailored to your senators. The chance to stop our tax dollars from going to abortion and the chance to defund the nation's largest abortion provider, Planned Parenthood, is within grasp. But our U.S. senators only have until the end of this month to accomplish these pro-life goals through healthcare reconciliation this year. This is an urgent time, and your senators need to hear from you before the healthcare vote. Make sure to go to prolifeweekly.com and submit your message. Tell your senators to support the Graham-Cassidy pro-life healthcare bill. Turning now to more pro-life news, the Brothers of Charity will meet with Vatican authorities next week to discuss the fate of the group. The Catholic group's board of trustees announced they will continue performing euthanasia in their Belgian-run hospitals. The board includes 3 Brothers of Charity out of its 15 members. The group's Superior General, Brother Rene Stockman, tells our news partner, Catholic News Agency, the path to euthanasia is not viable for a Catholic hospital. Stockman said if there's no change in the board's euthanasia policy, the Brothers of Charity may leave the board of the hospital, meaning the hospitals would no longer be considered Catholic. Pope Francis ordered the hospitals to stop performing euthanasia by the end of last month. A teenager with Down syndrome puts Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel on the spot about her pro-abortion views.
9 von 10 Babys mit Down-Syndrom werden in Deutschland nicht geboren.
That's teenager Natalie Dedreau saying 9 out of 10 babies with Down syndrome are not born in Germany. That's because of abortion, often late-term abortion. The teenager who has Down syndrome herself continued asking, why is it allowed to abort babies with Down syndrome until just before birth? I do not want to be aborted, but to remain in the world. The question left the crowd cheering at Germany's election debate. Merkel, who is pro-abortion, argued her party advocated for consultations before a mother got a late-term abortion. And another exchange about abortion is getting attention in the United States. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro spoke at a highly anticipated event at the University of California, Berkeley last week. One student challenged Shapiro on why he believes an unborn baby in the first trimester has moral value. Here's how the argument unfolded.
I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value, not necessarily being a human alone.
Okay, if you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well then, no.
The student continued to argue being in a coma is still potential sentience or consciousness. Shapiro responded with, yes, and so is being a fetus. Jahai McMath was 13 years old when she underwent a botched throat surgery and suffered cardiac arrest. Her brain was deprived of oxygen and she was declared brain dead. But now, nearly 4 years later, a judge rules Jahai may technically still be alive. A California judge is allowing a malpractice lawsuit against the hospital to move forward. And if the family succeeds, Jahai's care could be covered. The ruling came after a retired neurologist in court said videos of Jahai show the teen is still alive. This case has reignited a national debate over brain death. To delve more into this, we are joined in our DC studio by a top bioethics expert. Wesley J. Smith is an award-winning author, a senior fellow at the Discovery Institute's Center on Human Exceptionalism, and a consultant to the Patients' Rights Council. Wesley, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is a very uncertain case, and you have been writing about it. You just wrote a piece in First Things, and it starts off, in California, Jahai McMath is legally dead. In New Jersey, she is legally alive. How can this be?
Well, the states of California and New Jersey have different laws. Brain dead is brain dead in both states, but which Jahai was found to be in California.
Right.
But in New Jersey, there's a religious exemption. And so when Jahai was moved from California to New Jersey, I assume that religious exemption was invoked, and so she's not dead in the state of New Jersey. She is dead in the state of California, And in fact, a death certificate was issued for her in that state.
You have previously written that you believed that Jahai was, in fact, dead. Now, 2017, do you think that death certificate should be revoked?
You know, 4 years ago, that's how long it's been practically. In a few months, it'll be 4 years. Doctors testified that she had lost all neurological function, total brain failure. They testified her body would break down. As most people who were declared brain dead, their bodies do break down. They testified that there were treatments that were requested would not be efficacious. 4 years later, Jahai has not broken down. 4 years later, according to the testimony of Dr. Alan Schumann, who used to teach at UCLA, he's a pediatric neurologist, very well respected, he believes that she no longer exhibits the criteria for brain dead, even in California.
Wow.
And I visited Jahai with Bobby Schindler a few weeks ago. And I have to say, I'm convinced that we should not leave this with the tests from 2013, that enough time has passed, and for example, videos that Jahai's mother has taken, some things that I saw, I think that this case needs to be examined more thoroughly. Doctors need to come and spend a lot of time here with Jahai and do these tests again over time, and not just in an hour or two, but over time, because something has happened here, perhaps, that we've never seen before.
And this could be a case where someone who has been diagnosed as brain dead now has restored neurological function. How significant is this, and is the science community paying attention?
If indeed she was properly diagnosed as brain dead back in 2013, and she now has certain functions that she didn't have then. My understanding is that that would be unprecedented, that nobody who has been properly diagnosed as having its total brain failure, as having lost all brain function in the whole brain and each of its constituent parts. It's my understanding no one is, because it's supposed to be irreversible, right? To be dead. It's my understanding that no one has ever come back from that. So if she now, and again, I think tests need to be done, I think they need to be thorough and over time. If she now has brain function, either the earlier diagnosis was mistaken, but there were 3 doctors, including an independently appointed doctor from Stanford, who came to the same conclusion, and I don't believe that they were giving her the bum's rush or anything like that. Either those 3 doctors were in error back then, or something is different now that I think science should be very interested in exploring, that the bioethics community should be interested in exploring, because if Jahai is indeed alive and the original diagnosis was indeed accurate, and those are ifs, something important has happened that we need to find out about in law, in policy, in science, and in bioethics. And the idea that we could just pretend that this isn't happening is a form of whistling past the graveyard. And I'll tell you, having met Jahai's mother, she's not going to let this go. Jahai's mother is dedicated to her daughter. I was really impressed, and really believes that Jahai is still with us. And I would not want to be on the wrong side of that woman, I'll tell you.
That is incredible. Wesley J. Smith, thank you so much for your insight on this, bringing some clarity to these really confusing questions we're facing. Wesley J. Smith of the Discovery Institute, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
When we come back,
There's no excuses. No excuses. Do not give up.
new friendships are formed as these children without limbs come together for a very special camp. Stay tuned for that inspiring story as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. The day that people lose their horror for abortion will be the most terrible day for humanity. Those are some of St. Pio of Pietrelcina's bold words on abortion, according to the priest who assisted him. We remember the beloved Padre Pio as we celebrate his feast day this week. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Seltner. In this week's Speak Out segment, we see how our abortion culture and hookup culture are closely linked. The online dating site OkCupid is teaming up with Planned Parenthood in a new campaign by creating pink profile badges for users who support the abortion giant. The badge says #IStandWithPP and is prominently displayed on the profile of every member who publicly answers that Planned Parenthood should not be defunded. OkCupid is now also matching every dollar donated to the abortion giant through their website. Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards showed her public support, tweeting out, "Pink looks mighty good on you, OkCupid." Planned Parenthood promotes risky sexual behavior and then encourages female patients to get an abortion if they have an unexpected pregnancy. The group's own website says promiscuity is not a bad thing. This is a vicious cycle that profits the nation's largest abortion provider and provider of contraceptives and STD testing. It could not be more obvious that Planned Parenthood is not interested in you having a healthy relationship. Their agenda is the opposite of women empowerment, and support of their agenda is the opposite of what you should be looking for in a potential spouse. Women, you are valuable and beautiful. Only date men who hold up your inherent dignity, who cherish you and protect you. And men, you play an important role in our world. We need you to rise up and lead us in holy relationships. OkCupid is making a careless mistake by teaming up with the nation's largest abortion provider. But if you happen to be on OkCupid and you see a profile with a Planned Parenthood filter, my advice is to filter them out as prospective dates. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Go to prolifeweekly.com and tell your senators to support the Graham-Cassidy pro-life healthcare bill. In life, we all face difficulties, but how we respond to those challenges and continue on living is what defines us. One summer camp is sharing that message with a very special group of kids, and it's a lesson we could all probably learn from too. Here's this week's Pro-Life Focus. You may not notice at first glance, but this 11-year-old girl full of life happens to be missing the lower part of her left leg.
I had a problem with my bones, so I had to get amputated.
Tatiana drew a picture one day of a little boy who had a prosthetic leg like hers. And she brought it to us and said, "One day I'm going to make a friend that looks like me." We didn't know where we were going to find that little friend. So her big sister did some research and found camp.
That camp they discovered is Camp No Limits. Here, kids without limbs, either from an accident or from birth, can just be kids. Camp activities are both fun and physical therapy.
One of the kids that was there said it was better than going to Disney World.
Camp founder Mary Layton is an occupational therapist who's worked with people of all levels of limb loss. Her goal is to support the entire family and empower the kids who come.
People may feel sorry for our campers, but for our campers, I don't think that they want them to feel sorry for them. They just learn to adapt. Sometimes in life things happen and you learn to adapt and you just make the best of every situation you can. And I think our campers really strive hard to move past the stares and the comments and things. It makes them a little bit stronger.
It's a mission that's obviously resonating. Layton started Camp No Limits in 2004 with only 4 campers. Today, it's grown to 10 camps nationwide, with people traveling from all over the world to attend. Pedro Pimenta lost all 4 limbs as a teenager in Brazil. He benefited from Camp No Limits and now gives back as a staff member.
And especially for kids, that sense of belonging is very important for them, and being the different kid in the block can be difficult. We're here to eliminate that, to give them a sense of you're normal. And even some kids will bring the best friends over, and the best friends will get educated and go back to school and educate others.
It's that sense of belonging that might be the most valuable part of this camp.
I have always wondered whether I was just alone with my condition, but Camp No Limits has helped me realize that there's a lot of kids out there like me, and it's just a really amazing camp.
7-year-old Logan agrees.
So when I was born, I was missing a bone. So me and my family tried every doctor. Our doctor said that I needed prosthetics. So they cut it out in my feet because it had no bones in it. Camp No Limits is helping me make new friends.
Campers here have learned new lessons.
There's no excuses. No excuses. Do not give up.
Keep going. Keep trying. Never give up.
Formed new friendships. And discovered new gifts. Camp No Limits lets these kids forget about what they're missing and to remember what they have. Those kids are such an inspiration. Thank you to Camp No Limits for letting our team join along for the fun. That's it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. You can reach us anytime at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. And remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.